do a lot of talking about my daughter and some of the success she's had, but it happens that this weekend, my business partner, his daughter has had a gigantic accomplishment, so I'm going to take a little bit of time and tell you what she did. I don't know if you're aware of the type of soccer player that she is, but she's a freshman just like my daughter, and she starts on her varsity soccer team as a freshman in high school. She also plays on one of the most successful club teams in the entire nation. They just had a tournament this weekend, and Marcel came here, believe it or not, and missed the final game of this, which is amazing. I think we owe him a gigantic thank you for that, too. That is a huge sacrifice. If you knew what was the most important to him, you would know that coming here and missing that is a huge, huge deal to him. But they started out with 10,000 teams in this tournament. They started with 10,000 teams. 96 of them made it to the tournament this weekend. And one of them is going to nationals, and it is her team. Her name is Marley Olson. That's my cousin. Marley Niederhauser. Write it down. You might want to get her autograph. So, last night I had an experience that changed what I was going to say to you guys here today, because I had one of the best experiences I've had in the last 5 years. How many of you guys were at the women's event last night? The women's empowerment event. Do you guys think that the rest of everybody else should hear that story about Marcel and I? So I stood up there and I told them that one of the things I love about these events is watching people walk across the stage. And early on, I was one of those guys who would judge everybody standing up here, and I would say, okay, if they can do it, can I do it? And I would judge everybody, and some of them would walk across the stage and I would say, look, really? And I would look at Mark and I'd say, we're going to kill this thing if they can do this. So I want to tell a story about Marcel and I so that you know without any doubt that if we can do this, you can do this. You want to hear it? Alright, so early on, when I first started doing this, Marcel and I decided we were going to be business partners. And he said, I'm going to come pick you up and we're going to go on this 2,000-mile ride. And I thought, okay, I don't really know this guy, but I'm going to jump in a car with him and I guess do this ride with him. And the first thing he did without knowing me was turn the radio up and started playing music. Now, how many of you guys sing with the music? Anybody do that? Well, Marcel started doing it out loud. And I looked at him and I said, Marcel, what are you doing? And he goes, what? And I go, do you know who sings that? And he goes, well, of course I do. It's AC/DC. And I looked at him and I said, well, maybe, just maybe, you should let them sing it. And that started out a 15-year relationship, you guys, and I wouldn't trade for anything. I love you, Marcel. I appreciate you. Now, on another road trip, this is who we are. We ended up in San Diego. Now, how many of you guys live on the coast? Anybody live on the beach? Okay. We ended up in San Diego, and I'm sure the beaches where you live have those rocks that go out in the ocean. They're like wave breaks, right? They go out like this, and then they kind of drop down, and they go a little further out, and then at the end of it, there's a spike, so you kind of know where it's at. Well, Marcel and I are extremely competitive, so we're standing out there, and there's signs everywhere telling you not to go on the rocks. But one of the things you'll notice about the leadership in this company is we don't really follow rules very well, so we just ignored the signs. We walk out on the rocks, and he runs out and touches a rock about 3 or 4 steps out before the wave comes in and runs back and looks at me like, what are you going to do? And I went, I'm going to go further than 3 or 4 steps. So I go run out, and I hit 5 or 6. He goes out to 7 or 8. I go out to 9 or 10. We end up standing on the point at the end of that wave break. Now, you guys that live by water know that water kind of goes up and it comes down, and right? When we got out there, the waves weren't exposing the low part of the rocks. And we were stuck. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Kids need to close their ears. The lifeguard saw us standing out there. And he shows up in his little Toyota, and over the loudspeaker, over the little horn that he had, he said, hey, dumbasses, get off the rocks. I looked at Marcel, he's not talking to us, right? So we decided that we probably better get off the rocks. So Marcel and I are trying to time it. It's like every 5th or 6th wave exposes the bottom of the rocks. Well, Marcel thought he had timed it right. He jumps off the rocks, he's running across there, and a wave hits him in the back and knocks him into the ocean. Now, I think that's great. I think that's hilarious. Because we've got all of our clothes on our walls and our pocket. I think that's hilarious. And he goes, "It'll help me out." And I'm like, "No way, dude. You're in the water." I thought he was going to pull me in. So he's already wet. He runs in. So now I have to try to time this thing. And I decide that I'm going to run across the rocks. I get ready to go, and a wave hits me in the back and knocks me off the rocks. And my leg slips down in between the rocks. You know those little seashell things? It rips the entire front of my leg off. Completely. I mean, just blood everywhere. But now I'm soaked. I've got blood going in the water. I'm standing in the ocean. What's in the ocean? I didn't like that. So I go flying out of there. We get down to the end of it. There's this little kid on the end of the rocks. He's reading a book like this, right? And we get there, and he looks up at us, and he goes, "That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my whole life." And he looks back at his book. Now it gets better, you guys. If we can do this, can you do this? Well, it doesn't end there. So we go back to the car. We're soaking wet. We got seawater all over us. We decide not to change. We decide to get the wet clothes off. We get in his car because we have an appointment in Arizona. We get in his car in just our underwear. We didn't realize the time hadn't changed. We thought we had plenty of time to get to Blue's house that night for a meeting. And we called him and said, "Hey, we're on our way." He goes, "Well, where are you at?" We told him. He goes, "You're not going to make it." And we said, "Yeah, we will." He goes, "No, you're not going to make it." And we said, "We will." He goes, "No, the time didn't change." And we were like, "Oh." We went 105 miles an hour on I-8 from San Diego towards Tucson until Marcel looked at me and he said, "Tyler, do you think that Ford trucks can go 105? And I said, "I don't think so." Right? But I looked in the back. Well, this Ford truck had red and blue lights in the grill. I want you to picture this real quick. We're sitting in his car in our underwear. I think that's hilarious, because I'm not driving, right? The only time I didn't drive, where's Marcel? So he catches us in a truck, and we pull over. Well, Marcel had just bought the car, and the registration from the previous owner was in the glove box, and we gave him the wrong one. And he thought that we had stolen the car. So now, he gets Marcel out of the car and he's standing on the back like this. And I'm dying in the front seat, right? This is the greatest thing that has ever happened in my life at this point, right?
We're going to be late to the
And so I'm laughing, and all of a sudden I hear this something come over the radio, and the cop looks at Marcel, and he goes, "It's your lucky day. You better slow this thing down." And he gets in his truck and he leaves. And Marcel's just standing there, right? He's looking around. And I'm like, "Dude, get in the car. We gotta go." And so he gets in the car and we take off and we show up at Blue's house an hour later. Is that awesome? Guys, if we can do this, anybody can do this. Anybody can. We used to show up at people's houses in a gold Mazda 626. A gold Mazda 626 with the front fog light hanging down on the ground, skipping and sparking all the way up to people's houses and saying, "No, no, no, ignore that. We're going to make you rich." Can you imagine what the person doing the meeting had to say? "Oh yeah, I got these really successful guys. They're coming to show us how to make millions of dollars, and absolutely no question whether or not you can do this. Right? All right. I guess I better give you something to take home. Let's see if I can get these slides for you. All right. You guys want me to show you how to go Pro 5 real quick? So these are the new packs, right? 300, 600, 1200. Those are the commissions that are attached to it. Take a picture of that. That's a lot easier than some of the other slides that they've showed you. 3, 6, 12, 125, 250, 500, right? Now that's a nice increase for those of us that have been around the business a little bit. We know that that's now a 50% payout rather than 40, correct?
Yep.
Is that good? Okay. All right, now let's take a look at what would happen if you sign up 5 people in each one of those packs. What would your income be? 625, 1250, or 2500 at the Freedom, 1250, 2500, or 5000 at the Vantage, or 2500, 5000, or even $10,000 if you sign up 20 people at the Platinum Pack. But anybody use an extra 10 grand? Okay. So how do we do this? How do we go Pro 5? Well, I think it's that simple. 5 you get 3. Now let's do some math real quick. I like to do this. If you sign up 5 people at a Platinum Pack, how much volume do we get for that? 1,000 each. So times 5 is, I need a lot of interaction. Times 5 is 5,000, right? If those 5 get 3, how much more is that? That's 15. 15 plus 5 is 20. Have you done it?
Yes.
Okay? Now let's look at this next thing here for a second. If you're a little bit more like me and you don't want to rely on anybody else to do this, go get 10 who get 1. Does that make sense? And if you want to completely eliminate anybody, go get 20 all by yourself. Can you do that? You think you can do that? Somebody stood on this stage and said, if you think you can, you're right. And if you think you can't, you're right. So how many of you guys think you can get 20 people in the next 6 months? Alright, that's a little better. What if you just compress the time into 30 days? Could you still do it? Here's what I want you guys to think. I want you guys to stop thinking about yourself in this equation and start thinking about other people. If you had been riding around with Marcel and I in the very beginning, it wasn't necessarily about us. We were always trying to figure out how to find that other person who saw what we saw. So wouldn't it be a lot better if you just went and found 5 people who wanted to get 5 who got 3? Or 10 who got 1? Wouldn't that make more sense? What would happen if you did? What do you think? Just for fun, guys. 5 who get 5 who get 3 is 105 enrollments. That's 100,000 in volume. And that is the Pro 7 rank. Wouldn't you rather be a Pro 7? Does that seem doable to you guys? What do you think? Does it? It's just 5 who get 5 who get 3. Can you do that? How long do we have to do it? 60 days, right? 60 days. If you do that in the next 60 days, those 5 people on your team are going to get how much money from that new Pro 5 bonus? Is anybody going to get that?
Go, baby!
Look, if we don't have 100 people on that stage getting that, I think we should be ashamed of ourselves. We should have 4 or 5, don't you think? How much money is it if you sign up 5 people at $500 a piece plus the $3,500? 6 grand, right? What's the average income in America? About 50 grand a year, correct? Average income in America is 50 grand a year. It's $4,000 a month. What did you just do?
Above average.
You just replaced it. You can now show somebody in their first month how to replace the average income in America. Is anybody going to go do that? All right, you guys. If you will do this Pro 7 rank, the average income at Pro 7 is $10,000 a month. If you continue to keep your job plus this, you've tripled the average income in America. Am I right? Yeah. And I can show you how to do that in 60 days. Is that a big deal? Okay. What I want to do to wrap this thing up